Always want to make Brandon Aubrey the highest paid kicker in the league. No. Calvin Watkins reporting a multi-year deal around $7.5 million per year. Aubrey's camp kicked that offer to the curb. How about $10 million? Cowboys trying to figure it out. Here's how good of a kicker he is. Field goal percentage is fifth best all time, 88%. 50-yard makes 35. It's 7 more than anyone else since 2023.
And I think that field goal percentage is unfair to him.
Because he hit some bombs.
Because he tried. They asked him to try.
At a 65-yarder.
And nobody else would try. So
you can only franchise tag one guy.
Yes.
They're talking about franchise tagging Pickens.
Yeah.
Who's more of an important offseason priority?
Listen, I think Brandon Aubrey is one of the most important weapons in the league. He's a restricted free agent, which means, it's a little complicated. Teams can then sign him away, but they'd have to give up a draft pick for it, not the same as the franchise tag.
And they can tender him.
If they tender him in the second round, then a team, if he signs it, then that team has to give up a second-round pick in addition to the contract. Here's the thing. If I'm a team like Denver, I would do that. And if I were Denver in particular, because I don't totally trust their offense, the thin air up there, the kick, you start the possession at the 35 after a touchback, are you 1 first down away? If we get 11 yards on the drive and we are, at 40, at our own 46, and so are we in field goal range in Denver? Close to it. 15 yards, definitely. I would give Brandon Aubrey, if I were a contender such as Denver, the kicker version of the Mahomes deal. I'd give him a 10-year, $75 million contract. And $50 million guaranteed. And guess what? I just don't have to have all my worries as a football team. Kicker is taken care of for a decade. I think he's that good, and I think the new kickoff rules have made a guy like that much more valuable. He's been in the league 3 years. He's been an All-Pro all 3 years. And if I'm Dallas, I would same thing. 10-year, $75 million. I know you want $10 million a year, but how about what we're offering you, but for a decade?
Yeah. This is always the most interesting part about the off-season ASIN or some of these nuanced conversations. I don't even want to say nuanced. Nuance is not the right word. It's just kind of like a free-for-all. It's the opposite of nuance. 'Cause I don't know many people who are sitting at home can figure out, is it better to pay someone like Brandon Aubrey $10 million or $7.5 million or $7.5 million, but for like 10 years, I think it's crazy. In terms of trying to figure it out, but I will say this, the Denver Broncos, that's why that's a thought-provoking take. That's why originally when I kind of set out to make this clip, I was going to turn it into a Dallas Cowboys clip, but I'm like, nah, I want to talk Denver Broncos. It's thought-provoking. It's definitely thought-provoking, and when you have a kicker, obviously being up there in Denver and all that adds an interesting dynamic to it. I will say this as someone who watched a lot of these Cowboys games, it became tricky when to figure out how to utilize Aubrey because he can kick from so far out. The Cowboys, even as Nick said, that percentage is actually a little bit misleading because of this, right? And then the way how they ran their offense was well, we got this kicker who can, hit the long ball. And it almost became tricky in terms of they were almost kind of doing themselves a disservice. The offense actually kind of became stagnant at some points. And when he wasn't hitting the deep ball, it just hurt you even more. It was kind of hard to kind of find that balance and then stick that landing. Honestly, that was my take on it. There was times where I'm just kind of you need to be a little bit more aggressive on third down, or I don't know, maybe you go for it here on fourth down. Instead, you're kicking a deep field goal. And when he hit, it was this is a superpower. Oh my gosh. You just need 5 yards and you're kicking, you're just getting 3 points, and like heck at this point you're better off if you get 10 possessions or so, just keep kicking field goals, right? Okay, 30 points pretty good to me. Like all you do is just need your offense to get like 1 touch. You just Dak, can you get me 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns max, the rest are going to be field goals. We're good baby, we're good, we're scoring 28 points a game now, like alright, I just need you to get a couple touchdowns and a handful of and a couple first downs per drive and we're good. Like it really is kind of crazy, but obviously it doesn't always turn out that way, and there were times that Dallas got their hand caught in the cookie jar, it felt like, and it was just like, oh wow, what do you do? In a lot of ways I've been comparing a lot of things to Steph Curry recently, but in a lot of ways it makes me think of like kind of Steph and in shooting threes, and it's like, yeah, you can hit that logo 3. Doesn't mean everyone should be shooting that logo 3. And even Steph, I know you can hit it, but it's like maybe you're shooting too many logo 3s actually. It's like maybe and he's had moments in that. He's had stretches where even he admitted it and Steve Kerr were like, you're probably shooting too difficult of shots right now. I know you can hit them. I know you can, but like, might not be the most conducive thing to winning basketball right now. And so when you have that tool in the toolbox, when you have a lot of tools in the toolbox, one of the biggest problems is trying to figure out when and how to use it. It's like, I know I can do this, but it doesn't mean that I should. And so that is something that an Aubrey brings. But I will say this, the way how some of this has been changing a little bit, it does feel like Aubrey might not be the only kicker. It feels like over time we're just going to have more and more of these kickers hitting, not only kicking field goals with a high level of accuracy, but then also deeper and deeper and deeper. I think we're just going to potentially see more of that. Now, Aubrey and co. and the guy from you can't think of his name. I think with the Jags, they're definitely the beginning of that trend. But like this is my dad always says this every time I watch a football game, and it's always like I get it. But he's like, you don't understand, when I was watching football a 45-yarder was a deep field goal, and he's like, they used to kick field goals like straight on, and I'm like, yes I know, he always wants to tell me that. And so it's like this has been the progression of kicking in the NFL. And so now everyone's kicking 50-yarders, 55-yarders, like now you got people, a lot of guys are hitting like 60-yarders. It's don't get me wrong, I don't want to act like it's the complete norm and everyone can do it all day, every day, but it's becoming more and more common. So even if you give this 10-year contract, like I don't know, in 5 years is like, do you need to do that? Like I don't know. And also what happens when you have like half the league can start really kicking? Again, maybe not as great as Aubrey, but it's all within range. All within range of that to a degree. Do all kickers now command more money, or does it kind of equalize it a little bit? Right? It's like if you had a running back right now, if you had 2 running backs in the NFL who just without a doubt can get 200 yards they're just monsters, right? It's just Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley combined, and just without a doubt, he's averaging 200 rushing yards a game. You'd be like, oh my god, this guy is worth his weight in gold. You would pay him, I don't know what the price would be, but like $50 million. I mean, seriously, if you think about it, if you had a running back that was averaging 200 yards per game and a couple touchdowns, like would you pay him $50 million? Yeah. I mean, you'd have to give him a pretty high amount of money, right? If you could just hand the ball off and he's just going to be able to barrel through everyone and just get 6, 7 yards a carry. It's an extreme example, but it's done purposely, because if you only have like 1 player, 2 players are that you're gonna pay him $50 million. But it's interesting because what happens when that just becomes the norm? If now for whatever reason, the way how football's played, and it's just like nope, every team has a running back that can hit 200 yards, 200 yards a game and a running back that gets like, 7 yards a carry or whatever. That just becomes kind of the norm. And does that elevate the price? Does something else now get replaced? Is the wide receiver now not getting as much money as a running back, right? Like does it change, or is it no, now everyone got that? So the money kind of stays the same because you don't have to pay the running back because you can just draft I can draft someone who's going to be able, or I can get someone else in free agency that can also rush for 200 yards. Like that's why the economy of all this type of stuff is it's a little unpredictable. It's a little tricky because you do kind of have to figure out the trend. We kind of saw this going the right way and the wrong way just with quarterback play and wide receiver play. It was when passing started to take over, wide receivers were like, oh my god, if you have a Tyreek Hill or someone like, we got to pay this guy as much as money as possible. Because like this is the ultimate super weapon. And then other wide receivers were elevated through that. And then you kind of realize, well, do we need to pay him? 'Cause like there's a lot of great wide receivers coming out of their draft year after year after year. And it's like, yeah, but they're still so important. We got to pay him. But then it's just like, well, yeah, you could. But then it just becomes a messy conversation where you're like, well, I don't know, and you have some teams that are willing to, some teams that aren't. Like it becomes a lot more complicated. A lot more complicated. And then it becomes a kind of a conversation of like, well, where are you at in your team right now? You don't really want to pay a wide receiver $4 million, but if you have a chance to win the Super Bowl this year, it's worth, like you start to kind of get in that kind of conversation. So, I have been thinking about this actually near the end of last season about the evolution of field goal kicking and what it looks like, especially with the rule changes on the kickoffs and kind of like what Nick is saying to a degree, but he's making it very specific about Denver. And I'm just trying to think of like what do the trends, and again hearing my dad tell me again seemingly every single game about the evolution of the field goal kickers, and just kind of like okay, but what does that look like now? How does the NFL change? We've already seen the way how it changed in terms of going for it on fourth down, right? That completely has transformed the NFL with going for it on fourth down. Do we now no longer see it as much because you're now, rather than going for it on 4th and 2, you're better off just kicking a field goal? Like it's just interesting to me. Teams also want to run the ball more. There's more of a focus on defense now. There's definitely more with that pendulum swing is definitely swinging back. There is definitely more of an emphasis on defense than there had been for the last like 5, 6 years or so. Now with more of an emphasis on defense, is there more of an emphasis on kicking field goals, take the points, right? It's all interesting, and I think it's hard to predict. So Brandon Aubrey's taking a swing 10-year, $10 million a year. I just wonder if you could pay a lot less than that. Get a kicker who's kicking 80%. He maybe can't kick a 65-yarder, but he's pretty good at, 54 and under, but you only pay him $5 million or something, $4 million. I think it's always hard to really understand what you can do, with a difference of like $7 million in C. I think that's just always a little tricky for me to figure out when that matters. Like I think it's hard. I personally struggle with it. And I think a lot of people just kind of make up and guess and just say things confidently. So it sounds like, oh yeah, he knows because Nick could easily come up here and be like, you can't $7 million. And like you could say it so confidently, and it's just like, well, I don't know. It depends where you're at with your team. Is that the difference between keeping George Pickens or not? Is it the difference between, it's just like can you make it work? It all depends on who you're already paying, what you need, what you're drafting, who's on contract, who's owed money in a couple year, whatever it may be. So, but it's thought-provoking. It's definitely thought-provoking, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the thought-provoking takes in the off-season. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Should the Denver Broncos go after Aubrey, Brandon Aubrey? Should the Cowboys pay the $10 million like 7.5 for 10 years or 75? Like. Let me know your thoughts. I read every single comment. It's whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get to some discussions. Let's get to some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.